Jordan Legg, I'm the Chief AI Officer for Takara AI. I've been in AI before the hype. We're building like completely different experiences for the way that people buy things and people experience things. Like in the fashion industry, you can just take in a CAD drawing of a shirt or a piece of clothing and then just use generative image to just create an image of a model wearing the t-shirt. It's a complex machine. Imagine this, I and most researchers don't even know how the model works. Fully autonomous. That's what we're gonna get to, is fully autonomous generative AI experiences. It's dangerous in the wrong hands. It has the potential to do as much damage as something like the nuclear bomb, but again, you have to pull the trigger yourself.
Before you start this episode, please can you click subscribe below and follow our social handles in the description. It's a massive help and it keeps you up to date with all the exciting announcements from the podcast. Okay then, Jordan. Well, look, we'll jump straight in. So, thanks very much for joining me today, Jordan.
Good morning.
On the podcast, appreciate you giving us some time and coming in. I want to throw you straight in. So, with a bit of an introduction, really. So, do you want to give us a minute of kind of what you do, covering sort of some of the bits and pieces that you cover? Because from doing the research on you and putting the information together for today, it seems like you're, a big player in the AI world in terms of development of the technology, and it's an interesting topic to talk about that's very much in social media and in the press at the moment. So I'll give you a minute to tell everyone who you are and what you do.
Thank you. Well, I guess I'm obviously Jordan Legg. I'm the Chief AI Officer for Takara AI, so I oversee basically all of the application development and architecture as well as frontier research for Takara and the clients that we work with. I've been in AI before the hype, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Now it's the big buzzword and everyone's really into it, but I've been like a self-taught machine learning engineer for probably 5 years. So I've been there working on, the typical NLP stuff, older chatbots, older sentiment analysis machines before ChatGPT became a thing. And then 2 years ago, ChatGPT came out and completely democratized AI to basically everyone. And anyone from a business owner to someone on the street like my mom can use AI and see what it can do for them. And now we use that technology as well as any other technologies to help really make other people's businesses work more effectively and save them time and do all sorts of really cool things. And so that's my short background. I'm super into my research right now. I worked with people like Cohere, and I worked with other amazing people around the world on some amazing projects in multilinguality, like translation and stuff like that, as well as vision and all sorts of generative AI bits and pieces. I could go on forever on just the stuff that I'm getting myself into right now. But that's the long and short of who I am and what I'm doing right now.
So why did you start the business in the end? So Takara AI, what was your sort of journey into the business world? Wanting to do things for yourself?
Yeah, so I started my first business when I was 19 in sales and marketing data. So we were using AI. I spent a year teaching myself how to do AI, which is interesting.
Yeah, a lot of trial and error probably.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. But essentially it's a very human thing for any salesperson or marketing person, which is you don't want to contact the 99% of people that don't want to buy your service. You want to contact only the people that want to buy your thing. So how do we use AI to essentially only contact the 1% of people that actually want to buy, and you save all the time of not having to contact everybody else? So that was our platform. I built that in my bedroom, and then there was employees, and then there was lots of other stuff, and then we were working with huge people like Amazon. It was whoa, this is crazy. I did that for 5 years, and that was such an amazing journey. And then I closed that business in 2023 and started a car because I wanted to take everything that I learned about AI and my journey in building that business, and then go and help other businesses radically change the way they work in a much more wider sense using AI machine learning. And so that's why we decided to start it back in, I think officially we started in January 2024, although I sort of started working on it probably in October of 2023. That's when I started working on it, yeah.
So what's the big dream for the business?
The big dream is to build a really large professional services and product-based business where we solve some really hard problems for people at work and in their daily lives. Our tagline is transforming humanity. We really believe in that, and we really think that we already have to some degree changed the way people work forever in a good way. And then I think the idea is to, get acquired one day maybe But I'm more focused on building amazing technology, doing frontier research, really making a mark, especially here in the UK, where the UK is not really well known for its AI currently. It's China and America doing amazing things. So it's nice to be here in the UK, flying the flag for us.
Fighting the good fight.
Absolutely, yes.
So you do a lot of talks and you write a lot of papers, and you're clearly well respected in the
I appreciate it.
in the industry, aren't you? From doing research and stuff like that, and looking at sort of different forums and bits and pieces. You speak really well about AI in a lot of different facets and a lot of different ways in terms of how it's utilised. Would you say that sort of Takara specialises in any particular industry, any particular vertical?
It's really interesting because in other technologies, it can be quite industry specific, but AI is one of these weird ones at the moment where you get things, for example, like AI for customer service, but that can be generalized across many different industries. So we're not seeing the sort of like specific verticals that you would see in a normal professional services business where you might only do maybe like, finance, or you might only do this. We've worked with companies in gambling, in retail, in construction, in like car finance, like all sorts of stuff that we've worked with people. So it's all over the place. But the use cases for AI remain relatively similar between those. So,
what would you say the main sort of problems businesses are trying to fix, or holes they're trying to plug utilising technology that you can build? Because everything's quite bespoke with what you do, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, at our level, it's really bespoke right now. I think in a few years, it's going to be a lot more product-based, where you can pull things off the shelf and it can solve a lot of problems for you. But it's still very early. Like, adoption in enterprise is still very low compared to like consumer use of AI. But a lot of the problems that we solve at Takara are operational based AI, or they're building new products. So for example, structured documents quite often are very difficult for people to do all the time, and they're quite monotonous. Whereas what people really want to do is focus on what is in that document, rather than like having to specifically structure that document with tables and with this and with that and with something else. Whereas we can just say, hey, look, your job is really just to design what's supposed to be in this document, and then you just hit go and you go, right, this is what I want to be in it, and go, and it's always that structure every time, and it saves them days of their life, and they can go and do something else, which is what they're supposed to be doing, not making sure that this PDF document is like exactly the same. Another thing is classification, so categorizing things. Like, you might have a business where you take in a bunch of documents and then you have to like sift through those documents to make an invoice or to do a certain job, and that can be quite time intensive as well, because someone has to sit there and physically read all this stuff and then put them in places. That's a great use case. Again, it's about saving time. That's what AI is really good at doing in some use cases. And then there's other things where we're building like completely different experiences for the way that people buy things and people experience things, like in the fashion industry, building like pipelines where you can just take in a CAD drawing of a shirt or a piece of clothing, and then just use generative image pipelines to just create an image of a model wearing the T-shirt, and that business can save $2 million a year from not
having the models physically on premise.
And flying them to South Africa in the winter to do the summer shoot, because everything's 6 months in advance.
So you're killing every model's dream at the moment.
Well, apparently so. Yeah.
But no, that makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, it's labour intensive, costly, and especially with everything going on with government changes and stuff at the moment.
Exactly.
This year, it's people are more than ever, I think, looking to, where can we reduce cost as a business, as well as investing their money more cleverly and tactically in areas that are going to give you a bigger return.
Absolutely. And as well, like, for the most part, you employ people to do what they're good at, and having them do like lots and lots of just raw paperwork and data entry is honestly not a good use of their time. When you have someone that's highly skilled as a marketeer or an accountant or anything, like even someone that processes planning documents, their expertise is knowing the planning code and looking at, like, does this fit where it's supposed to be, and using that sort of like subjective knowledge. They shouldn't have to read through like hundreds of pages of stuff in order to make their decision, and it just makes their life hell, essentially.
Yeah. So the way I would look at that is if I come from a sales background, primarily sales and operations background. Do you want your salespeople sitting in front of customers, or do you want them doing other things?
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Their job's to bring
Yeah.
to bring sales into the business, the right
Yeah.
customers into the business, to showcase your business.
Yeah.
Do you want them doing that 3-4 times a day, or do you want them doing it twice a week, 3 times a week? You know, the numbers just speak for themselves. If they're getting wrapped up in other administrative tasks that could be handled
Yeah.
automatically, or
Yeah. And that's exactly it. And that's exactly it. I think what's been very surprising to me, because I've not worked, previously I ran a product-based business, so
Yeah.
I'm used to people buying a service and I give it to them, and that's good. But I've not really been injected inside their business to worry about their processes, because we do a lot of that, like figuring out, like, what are you doing at work?
come in and fix stuff.
Yeah,
come in
like
and make things better. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We get some people that are like, I've heard about AI and just come and help me. So
Yeah.
we have to figure out where's the best value for them.
So do you get that often? That very broad look.
I would say
We know about this AI stuff. We don't know anything about it. Please come in and have a look and see what you can do.
Yeah, I would say 50% of the people that we talk to are like that.
Really?
Yeah, you get some people that like, I have this problem and I want you to help me do this. We love those people.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's so easy, because we can then scope
Very
something
specific,
out
yeah.
and we can fix that. And then you get some people that have heard about ChatGPT and then they're like, I want you to come in here and just find something that
Yeah. How can we use it?
exactly
How can we utilize
which
it?
I think is the wrong approach, personally, because it's like it's like a solution looking for a problem rather than a problem looking for a solution.
Sounds like somebody's trying to tick a box, thinking that that's the thing that they need to do.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Rather
Yeah.
than actually looking at their business and thinking, okay,
That's
I know a
exactly-
bit about this.
Yeah.
This could maybe fix the problem.
Yeah, for sure. Whereas the easiest thing you can do as a business owner is just find what the most annoying thing you do is at work, or the most time-consuming thing, and then just ask someone else, could this be done with AI? And then they can say yes, no, or not yet, something like that. And that's an easy way to go about it.
Yeah. So look, I think one of the things that is in the press at the moment, has been for a number of months
Yeah.
and years probably, is the mixture and the balance of the innovation of AI versus, and you see people, well documented, important people in the world, people like Elon Musk talking about safety and concerns around safety and security,
Yeah.
but then wanting to push the envelope with evolution and innovation. What's your stance on where things are going from a balance perspective on innovation and evolution of the product
Yeah.
and the services and solutions versus how safe is it?
Yeah, it's a really great question, because there's this idea of obviously proprietary systems like ChatGPT and Anthropic, Claude, all these things that you can buy for like $20 a month, and there's somebody else's model, and they're aligned to them, and they're aligned to their values,
Yeah.
and they're safe based on their values.
Dripping their information into you effectively.
Exactly
Yeah.
right. And then there's the open source crowd, and they open source their own models, and you can run those models yourself on your own hardware or your own servers or whatever. But still, that it doesn't end up being that cut and dry, because the amount of effort it takes to take an open source model and put it on your own hardware and run that and build all the gubbins around it, it's a huge undertaking. So your real only option for, like, especially people just getting into this, or smaller businesses, is to use those proprietary models. So it is a really good question to kind of go, okay, and it's more of a company thing than an AI thing.
Yeah.
Which company do I trust the most with my data? And which company do I think aligns their sort of bias in the model to what my company's sort of beliefs or compliancy is? And some of that can be changed through prompt engineering, but for the most part, I think that's the best way to go about it. I think people massively overblew how bad it would be. Maybe a year ago, they said the whole world was going to come to an end.
There was a lot of scaremongering
There was,
a year or so ago, wasn't
yeah,
there?
there was, and I think people forget that there are some extremely smart people working at both Anthropic and OpenAI, which are the two largest companies for usage of AI currently. We haven't seen any of the things that people said that would happen, because these researchers are people too. They're not like Dr. Evil from Austin Powers or something. They are actual real people, and they do actually care. And I've worked with a lot of these similar researchers, and one of their biggest concerns, which is funny because no other technology we've gone into before, we've thought about the safety before we've really made it adoption.
Yeah.
Like when we created the internet, we just created the internet,
And it
and
just
that was it.
Yeah.
Whereas AI, we're already talking about that. But I think it's because AI is a lot more mature than people think it is, and we have more experience building AI systems.
Do you think that people are also a lot more... People have evolved. People are more intelligent around the potentials of these solutions. So when the internet came out, I remember, I don't think anybody really knew what it... Well, normal person. Really knew what it was, how to use it effectively, how to make the most of it until it was sort of mainstream.
Yeah.
Whereas I think you've gone through that internet evolution. There's other things that have come through, other technologies that have evolved over the last 20, 30 years. Now we're in a position where AI is evolving. So do you think maybe people are a bit more switched on to the potential? Because they've also matured. Their minds have matured because they've been through various evolutions of other technology.
Yeah, for sure. I also think it's quite weird for some people. Like, it's a completely different experience.
Yeah.
Compared to like Google search, where you just enter a search query and you get results and then you do everything yourself. You're actually having a conversation with a machine.
Yeah.
Which is quite strange.
I tried to explain the concept of AI to my dad.
Yeah.
My dad's 81. Doesn't have a phone. He can go on to like BBC to listen to the football and look at the football results. He's a big Liverpool fan. And it was just the most frustrating 10 minutes I've ever had. I couldn't get him to understand that, as much as I'm not technically, up to scratch on AI, as much as yourself, obviously building the solutions, but I struggled to really, it felt like it was going in one ear and out the other, a little bit, to actually explain what you would use it for, how it works,
right,
and that sort of thing, which I think is quite common for a lot of people.
Yeah,
I just don't think they admit it.
Well, it's a complex machine. It's not a simple. It's not like typical software. Imagine this. I and most researchers don't even know how the model works when you finish with it.
Yeah.
Like, you build an architecture of the model, and then you do your training, and then you put that model into inference, and it's running. But there are things called hidden layers. They're hidden for a reason. You can't see them.
Yeah.
So you don't know how it's making those decisions, but you just set it a reward, and you say, find out how to do this, and it figures it out to some degree.
Yeah.
And you don't really know how it's done that. And there's loads of research going on right now trying to figure out.
It a bit.
Trying to unpick it. But ultimately, it's just a mathematical statistics machine. It's just a predictions machine where you feed it, previous data and tell it to learn about it, and then you give it a new thing to do, and then it just sort of goes, well, I think this is what you want, and I'm going to give you this answer.
Do you think AI is dangerous, or got the potential to be dangerous?
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
In what ways?
I think, just like anything, it's dangerous in the wrong hands. Of course it is. Just like anything. I'm happy at the moment that we've not really seen any fruition to that. But for sure, any technology is dangerous in anyone's hands. AI or even normal malware is dangerous, right? People like CrowdStrike are using AI to fend off other AI attacks. Email phishing is going to be something that's going to be very, very sophisticated in the future with generative AI. Could you imagine like tailored phishing attacks to your email inbox? After it studies stuff about you, like
it's quite easy to spot those at the moment if you've got a little bit of common sense. You look at the email it's come from, it's not looking the same, and the language isn't your language, and you train your staff to be open and understand that not every email is going to be something, you need to make sure you identify and look at it properly, not just skim.
Absolutely.
And open things and click links and forward things on. But like you said, something that can analyze the way that I talk and in my language. And then send that out to, to staff, my contacts, stuff like that. It's, how are you going to protect yourself? How can that be protected? It's a difficult question to ask from my side.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to see lots of things like that. But the lucky thing is we're also massively advancing AI on basically all fronts. If you think about like the advance of AI on just the normal side, which is the business side or the consumer side, I mean, it's just crazy. Trump yesterday announced 500 billion going into AI in the US. I mean, these are numbers I've never even witnessed in my life, in technology investment. And so that's the lucky thing about it, where we have lots of people that are already self-aware about the potential worries or the potential for maluse of the technology.
Yeah.
And we're already thinking about ways to combat that before it even becomes a major problem.
Yeah.
Which, again, is something we didn't do when the internet first started.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people I knew way back in the day when you had like an old computer and you got a virus and it was locked up, or you had to roll it back. And how many people do that now? It's like very little, right? You don't really get hacked like you used to do anymore. So it's interesting,
So you speak really clearly. You speak really passionately about technology, and you're a very clever person within that arena. Has that always been the case in terms of having an interest in technology? I mean, roll back the years a little bit to kind of what were you interested in growing up, school, that sort of thing? Did you always have a keen eye for this sort of stuff? Take me back to those times. How did you, what were those years like in the kind of evolution of your life, early doors, to get to a position of where you are today?
Yeah, well, I've always been a big fan of technology, just in general, especially technology that can make things go faster. I was always into like going, how do we make this smaller? How do we make this go faster? My first foray into coding was, I don't know, suppose you know the game Minecraft?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when I was 14, I played a lot of Minecraft, and so like, I wanted to make the game look different or play different. So how do I do this? Oh, you can make mods for it. You can code in Java. I hated that language. It really sucked. And then I sort of went into, well, I want to make a website. So how do I make a website? And I learned how to do that when I was like 14, 15. And you just do little bits of that enough over like 10 years, and you end up being able to do lots of different things.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed building computers and ripping them apart and building new stuff, and I still do that today, which I really, really enjoy. So it's that, yeah, I just have a really, really keen passion for both technology, really high-performing technology. When AI becomes saturated, I'll probably move on to probably the next thing, whatever that's going to be.
Yeah.
But for right now, I'm really interested in AI and ML, all the great things that are coming with it, as well as the hardware around it, which is the second conversation that most people are not having right now.
Okay. Explain a bit more about that.
Well, first of all, we don't have enough power, like as a human race, to power a lot of this stuff currently, which is an interesting thought. If the government or whoever wants to build large data centers, we currently don't have enough power in the country to power them. We also don't have enough like hardware, the processing units to even run some of these larger models and larger training runs. We're just completely tapped out. Everyone's buying up everything they can physically get their hands on to run AI, which I think is a super interesting paradigm shift in technology where we haven't had that previously, where it's been such a pressure on technology infrastructure. We'd hit a little bit with cloud when cloud was coming up, for sure. But this is at a point where every fab on Earth that's making chips is completely bought up for like the next 12 months minimum.
Wow.
It's just insane. So they can't make them fast enough to satiate the AI boom. It's crazy.
So how long do you think the kind of boom will last?
I think it's going to last a long time. Actually, I think we're going to see some really insane sort of increases in performance up until the 2030s. And then after that, it's going to be more difficult to increase performance after that. And the only reason is because we're running out of data and ways to get data to train these models.
Yeah.
We've pretty much trained on the entire internet, and now we're looking at synthetic data, like creating new data out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And looking at other things like video and images and physics and radar and satellites and other stuff to add more data. How do we add more data? How do we add physics data to make these models better?
Yeah.
There's just a point in time where it becomes so difficult to add more data that it becomes more difficult to make the models better. So I think we're going to see some really crazy increase in performance till the 2030s. And then 2030s, it's going to be like, the commoditization of AI, where AI is becoming basically ubiquitous in almost all systems, and it's really small and it's really fast and it's really unique. And maybe we'll start to see, the physical limitations of what we can do with traditional infrastructure, and maybe we go to quantum, and maybe we foray into that a little bit. I'm not sure, but that's my sort of 10-year roadmap for it.
10-year roadmap. I'll hold you to that. So I think with AI, you mentioned before about a lot of businesses bring you in. 50% of the people that you speak with bring you in with quite an open book of, we don't really know how we can use AI.
Yeah.
Let's get some advice. I think we're getting asked a lot more. We work in a technology business, very different to yourselves, but we look after telecoms and broadband and renewable contracts for businesses. But we get asked more and more about the use of AI with telecoms and broadband products. And yes, there's some things that can automate and make things easier. But I think even with the products that we have in the portfolio, still very limited, still very early days. I think people are asking about it a lot more because of more commoditized products that are on the market. Things like the launch of Copilot in 365. So now most companies are using 365. Copilot's now popped up as an icon. What's that new icon a year ago? However, when it popped up, they're starting to use it. They're starting to record and transcribe Teams meetings, and even in our business, we've probably been doing it about 9 months. That every Teams call will be recorded, transcribed, and you'll ask Copilot to do usually a professional but friendly summary of my call in 5-6 bullet points.
Yeah.
And it's probably 85%. It's very interesting. I was surprised on the level of detail and how accurate it was. Just picking up small nuggets of conversation. The one bit that I would say needs work on which is probably maybe the evolution, is how can that email be constructed in my language?
Right.
Because that's the bit that I have to change right now.
Yeah.
So I try to use it as much as possible, because if I'm doing a meeting that's half an hour long, or a product demonstration or fact find session or whatever, scoping session, they're usually pretty information heavy.
Yeah.
You're thinking about the next question. You're not necessarily writing down in-depth notes. So the recording and the transcribing is really, really key. But then you've got tons of data to look at, which again doesn't make sense in the time period to go and review. So you use like a Copilot to go and review that, get it done, not dumbed down, but get it kind of constructed in a way that's an easy format.
Yeah.
And probably that's 90% of the work. And then if I want to summarize that on an email to a client, I can do that. But I would probably spend maybe 5-10 minutes just tweaking that summary, maybe adding some stuff in. But the stuff that I will add in isn't information. It's how can I construct this email to be more Aaron?
Yeah.
I'm interested in how do you think the evolution, and how long will it take to get to a point where something like a Copilot that's readily available will give me the information, analysing me and how I talk?
It's a super interesting question. I also think the same way you do, which is Copilot is really great. It's a great general tool, but that last mile, which is tailoring it to your specific business,
it's not there yet.
It's so difficult because you're a very experienced person, and your experience over the years of working has been distilled into your head. And when you read something, you're reading something in a way that you expect it to be outputted because you're used to writing emails all the time. So how do we distill what's in your head over your years of experience and the way that you do work into another model that it can then output? And that's more of a data problem than it is an AI problem, because at some level you have to get that data out of your head or from other stuff into that model window, because I train a model off my own WhatsApps and it speaks just like me. But obviously you can't do that for every person, and obviously in a business you certainly can't do that, but it's totally possible. So the problem I think for Copilot, and to be honest, I'm not totally sure how they solve it, is how do they distill the company's voice from the relevant data that it can access, and then deliver perfect, tailored content based on that data that you would view and think, yes, this is exactly what I want.
Thing is with that, pushing that back to you, I don't think it needs to be perfect, because in the same respect of, in my business, we've got a culture and a way of talking and a language that we've evolved and distilled over a period of time. I would say that the language of the business is very much me, my co-founder John, senior people in the business. If someone's been in the business 3 weeks, they're not going to understand the culture in as much detail.
Right.
Therefore, how to behave in as much detail, the language to use, how to talk to customers in that way. They may have professional experience of how to do the job and how to talk to people, but is that guru? Is that my language? Is that how we do things?
Yeah.
We have a tagline, real people serving real people, because people in our industry are corporate wankers and they talk in a certain way and they talk down to people. We deal with small to medium businesses. Small to medium businesses are normal people.
Yeah, they are.
They want to be spoken to as a normal person. They're not a corporate that want that kind of jargon. We're not dealing with Amazon, we're dealing with Dave down the road who runs a scaffolding company with 10 people, for example.
Yes.
So in the same respect where you've got, as a business owner, I feel you've got a responsibility and a problem, a good problem, but a problem to try and sweat out your culture to the rest of your business over a period of time. You never get to 100%. At all levels. It's impossible. Nobody's you. You're not. They're not the founder. They've not been there long enough. They don't. So in the same respect of the data that's available with AI, in respect of how it uses, what data it uses, and how it puts that down as more of a you or more of your culture. Because then it's like, well, we look at it and think, well, do you have a business type language
Yeah.
that you would use for all staff with something like a Copilot, or is it individual to you? Because it should be individual to you, but then obviously that's a lot more work. I'm guessing software would need to review very quickly things like social media, language in social media posts, WhatsApp, text messages, phone call, all this great stuff, which I'm sure that's the kind of how maybe potentially it works, pulls that information together and then wants to scope how you're going to answer that email or that question. But it is an interesting one because as much as it can be done, how can that be done at that level en masse with something like a Copilot? That's crazy because
it is.
You know, you've done it with your WhatsApps, and I'm sure it works perfectly.
Oh, it does.
How the hell do you do that for millions and millions and millions of people across other facets like WhatsApp, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram? That you look at that, and then when you start to really think about, and this is what I'm getting with looking more and more into AI. I never realised the gravitas, the size, the amount of work and information and data that is possible.
Yeah.
And I'm only just looking into scraping the surface. You know, you understand more about how it all works, but it's huge in terms of just the scope. Quick word from one of our sponsors, Guru Technology. Simply put, they're the highest Google-rated company in their industry. A very different service and a very different set of products covering business-to-business mobiles, phone systems, energy, renewables and EV, security, CCTV, alarms, AMPR, broadband and IT. They specialise in dealing with companies who are receiving really poor service and spending a lot of money currently with their supplier. They will come to site, do a free of charge audit and fix any problems that you're having. So if you've got problems with your current supply chain, search Guru Technology in Google and give them a buzz. Thank you. Let's get back to the podcast. And the potential is vast.
It's super complex. I would not want to be in Microsoft's shoes where you have...
Because the bigger you are, the harder that is.
Oh my goodness.
Gotta be.
No kidding. You've got millions of customers that are all different shapes and sizes because everyone's business is the same but different.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you have to create a Copilot that's both generally...
Good for everybody.
Generally good and also bespoke enough that it's useful to their end users.
Yeah.
And can go through the complexity of you and your co-founders and and listen to these people, but don't listen to the new hire that just came in. You know, so we want to study off these people, not these people.
Yeah.
How does it know that? Other businesses may work completely differently. So it's a really complex problem. I'm so glad.
It's got so many layers, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm so glad I don't work at Microsoft and I don't have to solve it for them because I'm not sure
so how. That kind of draws back to the conversation we had about the accuracy of Copilot. The accuracy of Copilot when I use it is really accurate.
Yeah.
Really good. But then it's the lack of the personal touch.
Yeah.
And it's the same with things that you get different bits come through automated through things like social media, and you know it's automated straight away because it's a certain, it's delivered in a certain way, and that's not that person. So I suppose, in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, maybe we'll be in a position where you've got a big problem, which is going to be very hard to spot the AI from the real.
Oh, for sure. It's going to be very difficult.
Even with social posts now, you can kind of spot, I think you can still spot when you know the individual posting.
Yeah.
I can spot if that has been generated using AI most of the time.
Yeah.
I don't know how, just something that doesn't seem like you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there's going to come a time where that is.
It's the uncanny valley, isn't it? It's I don't know if you know that term, the uncanny valley.
No.
It's a term in like CGI in movies. You know when you see CGI in movies and it doesn't look right?
Yeah.
That's a defense response in your biology.
Okay.
Where you're like looking at something and you go, that doesn't look right. And it's the same thing with AI where you read something, you know the person or you know how someone's supposed to speak and it just doesn't feel right and you don't know why. And it's the same effect. And fixing that problem is because you can get an AI system basically to like 85, 90% good. That last 10% is such a massive ocean of energy and engineering. It's way, way more harder to do the last 10% than it is to do the first 90%.
Do you think that's because the first 90% is based on things like you said, mathematical calculations, facts, and the last bit is based on things you can't control, like emotion?
Yeah, it's super nuanced. It's super nuanced. It's super hard to model as well. It's so difficult. And it's hard to benchmark for as well. It's so like, how do you write a benchmark so you can evaluate that something that's been produced is good when what you're trying to measure is subjective feeling? That is so difficult. It requires huge amounts of real people to manually validate a lot of data. It's a gargantuan task.
Yeah.
But we're gonna get to a point where that is gonna be solved.
Yeah.
We're seeing it being solved even today. If you have, like I did, enough WhatsApps of yourself, you can get something that sounds just like you.
Yeah.
And I was talking to myself, and I was like, I don't like talking to me. This sucks.
It
sounds weird.
Things that I've spotted also your website that self-updates.
Yeah.
I saw that you'd linked something on LinkedIn in terms of that, which sort of, how does that work?
Basically, it's a generative AI model. It's very simple, actually. It searches the web and then creates content based off the web content it's found about me,
Okay.
and then completely constructs the entire website. And I've left it alone.
What, just evolves?
Yeah. Every month, it just resets.
Okay.
Just completely
So does it
automatically.
keep the same information, or does the information evolve and change completely?
It changes completely every time. Every
Wow.
time. So, if there's new things on the
Sounds
web.
pretty comprehensive. Although obviously the web, it's a basic build website
Yeah.
in terms of the way it looks. It looks
yeah.
nice, but it's a normal website. The information there is quite specific to you. It's it seems pretty. I got enough information from that to kind of understand a bit more about you as a person.
Yeah, it's just more of an experiment. It's just to see I believe that a lot of web content's going that way, where it will be automatically generated based on either user need or based on other factors in the
Where
world.
does it scope that change from? So, I suppose, it looks at the internet and picks out specifics about the business. So, for example, if that was my guru technology website, and I don't know, we had some press work that went out into the press, that could automatically be just updated into the website with the next refresh.
Yeah.
How do you control what goes on and what doesn't go on? Do you have to build parameters and stuff like that?
Yeah, I did a lot of testing, a lot of prompt engineering on that, as well as I reduced the scope in terms of a time window, and also with the kind of domains that I wanted it to not search against, and some that I did want to search against, and that worked really, really well for me. You can imagine in the future, if you just wanted to make the world's best news app ever, you just connect it to every news company in the world, scrape all that data, and then just create an AI model that could just write the news article with all the sources of every other news article ever written, and you have the best news article in the world.
Well, you'd have that industry specific as well, because websites are used to promote your business, to add your credibility as a company in your industry, and it's looked at. If you were in construction, you'd plug that into any news outlet or website, blogs, or whatever it is that construction legislation changes in the industry, all that sort of great stuff. And hypothetically, I mean, could this refresh be done daily?
I only
whatever.
You could be given second.
Imagine having a website for your business that evolves naturally with no input whatsoever.
Exactly. That's where I'm trying to get to.
Current business solutions.
Yes, fully autonomous. That's what we're going to get to. Is fully autonomous generative AI experiences.
Commercially, what would be the difference for a build like that versus a normal website build, for example? Obviously, I know everything's bespoke, but just broad brush.
It's not that expensive, because a lot of the heavy lifting is done by third-party APIs where you just put a credit card on and they just charge you per token.
Right.
So you're paying, I've got less than $5 on there, and that will last me 3 years.
Wow.
Just to do that long thing. It's going to get cheaper as well. The amount of cost is going down for Gen AI. It's not
more
going
adoption.
up. Yeah, and then apart from that, it's just a regular sort of Next.js website. It's nothing super crazy. All the smart stuff is being handled by third parties. So
you're plugging it together effectively.
Pretty much, it's Lego blocks. The only thing that's really different is there's a serverless cron job that just basically knows what time it is, and then just hits rebuild every month. The first day of the month, it just goes rebuild, and just rebuilds the site again.
I'm going to have a look at that in the next couple of months. I'm interested to see what changes.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too, because again, I don't know, because it's fully autonomous.
It's mad though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
Control, but without control.
Exactly. I think... But it's a good experiment, because I fundamentally
believe...
that.
That might be a tagline for you for the future. Control without control.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good. But I think a lot of the web is going to go that way.
Yeah.
For sure.
Really interesting. Look, got some questions from people. So we went out on LinkedIn, went out on Instagram, Facebook, and I've got some questions for some people that listen in and watch the show. So couple of things. So a couple of things I think we've tapped into, but we'll jump in.
Sure.
So Lewis on Instagram reached out last night and asked whether you think that AI will destroy the world and humanity.
Wow, that's a really crazy question. No, I don't think AI will destroy humanity. I think we have a better chance of doing that to ourselves.
Yeah.
If history proves correct.
Yeah.
Again, ultimately, AI is a system built by us, for us, aligned to us. So someone would have to go out of their way to create on purpose an AI connected to all sorts of different systems, which is the real problem. You know, people talk about AI being able to access like nuclear power plants. Well, they're like air gapped from the internet. So you'd have to like go there and then install it.
With that purpose.
Yeah, which again is somebody doing it. So it's not the AI doing it. You're doing it.
Which is no different to somebody doing something else.
Exactly, right? There, you know, AI is a little bit like, in some degree, it has the potential to do as much damage as something like the nuclear bomb. But again, you have to pull the trigger yourself and create something that can do that physical damage. So I don't think it's gonna be Terminator. Just from my experience and the people that I know building it.
Yeah.
Of course, anything can be made to do extreme damage. Just like we do all the time. You read the news like every week and there's something else going on.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's you know, destruction of the human race is not mutually exclusive to AI. That's for sure.
Yeah. Maybe AI just gets a bad rep sometimes because it's front and center at the moment.
It's just so weird for humans to think about a system that's modeled like us but isn't real.
Yeah.
That's very difficult for people to understand and accept, and I totally get it. It's a very strange thing to have a conversation with a robot.
Yeah, effectively, yeah.
Yeah.
Andy on Instagram, what do you believe are the blockers to AI development moving forward over the next 12 months?
Definitely access to good quality data. That is 100% the bottleneck for it. We have run out of a lot of data to make AI systems better. And so we're currently, everyone's looking at this problem like, how can we make our data either better or grow it? It's a massive bottleneck. It's a huge problem. That's going to be something that's going to significantly reduce our chances of making it better, as well as access to hardware as well. We've suddenly seen a change with the way things like ChatGPT work.
Yeah.
We went from a typical static model where you ask a question, it gives you an answer.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you've used stuff like O1.
No.
So
what's O1?
ChatGPT O1 is a model that kind of thinks as it's going.
Okay.
So it starts to output its sort of text, but you can't see it because it's thinking. And essentially what they're doing is they're just leaving the GPUs on to do its process. But that is really expensive.
Yeah.
Compared to like 40 seconds it takes to respond to your call. It's 2.5 minutes, which for them is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And you need more hardware to do that. Because if every user is doing it that way, you know, if they're using it 2.5 minutes per query rather than 40 seconds, you need like 5 times the hardware to do that. So it's also a hardware limitation as well, which we're trying to solve as a human race, but it's difficult, man. It's physics, it's logistics. Again, so I think it's for AI moving forward to the next 12 months, it's going to be, you know, watching video.
Data's the blocker.
Yep. Data's a huge blocker, and access to hardware is another massive blocker, especially here in Europe, where we've not been very good at building large pools of hardware, especially here in the UK, but we're a small island. So yeah, I think that's the big two.
Okay, good. I'm not sure if you know much about what the government have done on their sort of action plan, but David on LinkedIn mentioned here, what do you think of the recent release of the government action plan on AI?
Oh, interesting. So I know a little bit about this.
Okay, I'm glad.
Yeah, I know a little bit about this, but I know a little bit about this that people don't know.
Okay.
I spoke to the Artificial Security Institute back in April, I think, when they were just starting to think about doing some of this. You know, labor was just getting in. They were really starting to think much more intelligently about AI, what they can really do. And the first thing they ran into, which any person that's worked in a very large organization before, is that suddenly you realize that AI is really great, But the problems are actually in the business or in the institution itself. For example, you have one department that has certain amounts of data here, and they have a process and a way of storing that, Excel spreadsheets or something like that. And you have another department that stores all the data in a database or a different website.
Yeah.
And you have to bring that.
Which is common.
Very common across many different businesses that do things in separate ways, separate teams, separate language, separate documents. And you have to bring that together in order to make like reports or something else or whatever. And you're saying, okay, so instead of people manually entering and moving data across, we can use AI. But then AI can do that just fine. But how do you connect those two things together first before you even get to AI? How do you then coordinate between separate teams as well? So that for them was a huge challenge. I'm not sure if they've solved that challenge yet. I can imagine that it's a gargantuan task for them to go through, because the government and the civil service is a very human-driven, it's a very personal-driven entity. And so you're dealing with much more human-led problems than you are with technology-led problems, because, again, in the UK, we've been exceptionally bad.
I could imagine that their business would be quite archaic.
It's incredibly archaic. You speak to any council and they're snowed under with paperwork, not electronic documents, but paperwork. Which, many good big businesses now, they try as much as possible to delete paper, to delete process. The governments, they've not really done that. But to be honest, their function is not tied towards like innovation in that way. So they usually either throw people or money at a problem and hope it goes away in some degree. So I have some really good knowledge of where I think the problems lie with that. I think it's the only thing I will say is I think it's a good thing that they're looking at it and they're wanting to solve it.
Do you think they're looking at it as a tick box exercise to pacify that everybody's looking at it?
No.
Or is there a genuine impetus, they really want to utilize AI?
Yeah, they really want to use AI. After speaking to them at Whitehall, they really actually do want to use AI to make their lives better, to slim down government, to save cost, to deliver better service for their for us. But I think they massively underestimated how difficult it would be after, again, the UK government, as well as many older UK establishments, have completely neglected both other technology.
Just general.
Just in
IT
general.
infrastructure, network infrastructure, all that stuff.
If the government did general digital transformation, that would also be an amazing feat. Just as a base layer.
Do you think that's just because it's not been adopted because of the general scale of the project that it would be, or just there's not the? Are we talking potentially that they're the older generation? And there's no real appetite to go down that journey?
There's definitely appetite, and there's definitely areas where you see it work exceptionally well. Actually, a good example of this is parking tickets and speeding tickets. That technology works great. And it works all the time, and it works non-stop, and it's fully automated. So the government are perfectly capable of making... And a lot of that's...
If something happens, you've got a letter within 2 days.
That's it. That's what I'm saying. They are perfectly capable of making really good solutions, but the motivation is different in different areas.
I would say that motivation for that is money. Profit. Income.
HMRC is the same. That system used to be terrible. They did a digital transformation. It's great. The DVLA, exactly the same. And then now you get onto other stuff in government, like submitting a claim for special educational needs. No chance. You're waiting ages. So it's
there, but not.
They are perfectly capable of doing really good technology. They pulled that COVID-19 app together in like 3 months. It cost a lot of money, but they pulled it together in a record time. So they're perfectly capable of doing it, but it's a people problem. Not a technology problem.
The more that you talk about that, I can understand. I definitely understand. And that's the same with businesses, I think, as well.
Absolutely, no different.
People in businesses having an appetite, people not having an appetite, people not wanting to spend the money, invest the time, learn new things. It's kind of, I think you always need to have, in my opinion anyway, you always need to have an appetite to be open-minded to things and evolution and things that change. You don't have to adopt it, and as a business owner, it's your choice what you do when you do it.
Yeah.
You're not beholden to it. It's not like it's a legislation thing, but I think it's good practice as an owner of a business to be open to things that are happening and try to understand how they can benefit.
Yeah, for sure.
People and process and just general evolution of your business.
For sure, and don't be afraid to take risks as well. Like, we're very risk averse here in the UK. I would say extremely risk averse.
Yeah.
And so a lot of our companies don't innovate where they probably could do because they're too worried about like the opportunity cost of what if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Whereas other countries like America or France or China, they're just super good at just going, well, let's just see if it works. I don't mind, pumping 100 million into this startup to see where it goes.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work out, no worries, I'll just do something else. If it does work out, it becomes OpenAI.
Yeah.
So
why don't we do that?
I think because our financial institutions, our country's different. It's very different culturally. Also, our country is basically London and then everybody else.
Yeah.
I think everyone can understand where I'm going with that, but essentially, like, London is our entire economy, and everyone's just kind of attached to that. And if you think about it that even more, what are the biggest businesses in London? Well, it's banks and financial institutions, and then outside of that, it's like there's not like a lot. Like, we have a few tech companies, but not really, and so we just have a completely different business mindset to this age that we find ourselves in. But we have more than enough money here to really, really, really do some amazing things. And we have super smart people here. Like Cambridge, Oxford, super smart people. They all end up going, well, I can make more money in the US. I can make more money here. I can go over there. We need to keep them here, do really amazing startups here, do some really amazing stuff here in the UK. Because that's how we're going to compete. And that's how we're going to really, create jobs and create growth. I personally believe.
We've got another question here from Terry on LinkedIn as well. So, are there any secrets or hunches for you as a specialist in this remit regarding AI that you can, make our viewers and watchers and listeners aware of?
Oh, that's interesting. What, like tricks of the trade or something? Or
I think more maybe stuff that maybe isn't common knowledge that may be good or bad about AI, about the technology, about the potential stuff for the future. I think that's where Terry's trying to get at is there anything you can tell us inside knowledge about the technology that can either worry people, excite people?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think AI is going to become a lot cheaper, a great deal cheaper, which is good because that means more people can use it, especially small, medium business, which right now it's cheap enough to put in some things, but they don't have the budget to build these kind of systems to a degree that I would consider like worthy to put into production.
Yeah.
And so a lot of this stuff is going to get a lot cheaper. That's what I'm seeing, like by a factor of 20, probably, that it's going to get cheaper. So it's going to become way more affordable. Yeah. Also, it's going to become smaller. So you're going to see way, way more sort of AI happen on your phone. Apple's starting to talk about it. Samsung is, Google is. And it's there, but it's not really. But over the next 12 months, you're going to see a lot of AI apps, AI-powered stuff that's going to happen on your device locally.
What sort of stuff?
So content creation things, for sure. Like, that's going to definitely end up on your phone. Right now, it all happens somewhere in the cloud and you don't own it. Someone's going to come out with an app for sure.
So when you're saying about content creation, are you talking about asking an app to create an image of this or doing this and using that for content, that type of
probably more fleshed out than that. We're just seeing some of the really great technology and starting to impact the creative industry. I think it's going to become much more fleshed out where you can start to create entire advertisements with really good text and, be in a position where it's perceptually so good that you might not even know to some degree. And a lot of that's going to be really democratized down to the end user, probably towards the end of the year. I know for sure that there's an AI movie being made right now, which I think will come out.
You're not in it, are you?
No, I'm not. Thank God. But that's being made currently, and I think that's going to come out probably in 2026, which is going to be very weird.
So you're talking about a movie made with AI, or are you talking about a movie on AI?
A movie with AI.
Wow.
Yeah, a movie with AI.
Are we going to be told this is made with AI?
That's what I don't know.
That'd be interesting.
That's what I don't know. Half of me wants them to not tell anyone, but at the end
There's
credits,
no way they'll be able to keep that under wraps, surely.
well, I'm sort of like morbid curiosity where I want to know how many people can tell and can't tell
Without knowing.
without knowing. And they put it in the end credits that it was made with AI, but like how many people like knew straight away?
How many people are half an hour in thinking this is AI?
Yeah, for sure. Because I think, but it's or how many people didn't know it was AI and thought it was original CGI, and someone did that. One of the things I didn't realize going into this is which industry would be hit the hardest first. I think many people thought it was going to be customer service and sort of back office staff that would get basically replaced immediately. Funnily enough, they'll probably be there the longest.
Yeah.
And it's the creative industry that's taken the biggest hit for sure. Like, definitely. For sure.
You see a lot of the stuff in the press, like negatively, around things like deep fakes with, famous men and women. Stuff that obviously is affecting their character.
Yeah.
Stuff that they haven't done. That arguably you wouldn't know.
No, I know. It's getting really good. And
if they can do that sort of stuff, then obviously you think about a movie should be... it's obviously bigger scale, a bit more depth.
Yeah.
But, you'd think it was all possible.
It's a time and hardware and engineering problem at this point.
Yeah.
It's not like we don't know if it'll happen. It's more like it's going to happen. It's just more like an engineering problem. Yeah, for sure. And that whole creative thing is super interesting to me because I really thought the back end admin staff would be the first like place where it would really get automated away. Yeah. But that has not ended up being true. It's very, but it makes sense when you use these systems. It's very task based. Like, I want you to do this. So when you're doing your creative whatever for your business and you make, I don't know, some stock image for a marketing thing, or you create a small advertisement, or you want to add captions to something, or whatever that might be, you ask to do that singular task, and you don't need someone else to do that for you. Yeah. Whereas someone that's in the back office or does customer service, the amount that they actually do at work is huge. Like, understanding one system, understanding this process, that process, this process, that process, and getting an AI to both plug into everything like that and solve that is way more complex than getting just a singular task done in a specific field, or democratizing the creative aspect down to like your marketing team now is way easier than it used to be. And I know.
So you sort of see, rather than paying a marketing agency a retainer to go and create loads of content, you'd be effectively potentially paying an AI company to go and do that content, or doing it yourself, utilizing AI apps.
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say you still need the knowledge in order to, it's relative, right? If you take a layman off the street and ask them to do a marketing campaign with AI, it's not going to be very good compared to a marketing agency that uses AI to make a marketing campaign, for example. So it is relative in that degree. Yeah. I would say it's specific aspects of this, right? For example, in larger companies, which would usually employ like an external creative director, they don't really need that role anymore to some degree, where they can bring a lot of that stuff in-house because their marketing team can just go, well, I don't need to give you my vision, then you make it. I can give my vision of what I want for the company to look like.
And an app a third party creates it.
Exactly. Like an app or a thing or something creates it exactly what I had in my head. That kind of thing. So those are the kind of things that I think are...
And then I suppose it's about the team then making sure that is a fit for the business.
Exactly.
That emotive feeling part of the
exactly. But in terms of marketing agencies and in terms of needing that, I think you're always going to need that. And I think companies that adopt AI like yours does they're going to do better than companies that don't, because you can do more with less, or you can do more with the same, or you can do way more business. You can do better stuff as well, which is great. So that's what I think about that. I think
cool.
So. Yeah.
Okay. So what's next for yourself and your business then? What's next for you and Takara?
Well, next for us is obviously we're in growth mode right now. We're growing very, very quickly, and I do a lot of frontier research. So my paper Swarmformer came out recently, which I'm super impressed that we managed to get that out. It's super revolutionary, and we hope that it's going to really help a lot of people in the future. They will never know that it helped them, but essentially it allows you to dramatically reduce the amount of hardware you need to run models, and allows you to enter much more data into models as well, which is part of the problem that we're talking about, which is, you know, you're kind of limited by how much stuff you can give to this thing. And you end up running out of room to put in documents and to put in your voice and to put in your business. So how do we extend that, and extend that in a way that doesn't like massively skyrocket your compute costs, right? I don't know if you've used Google Gemini.
No.
Google Gemini is a model that they have, and it has a context window of 2 million tokens, and there's like 1.3 words per token, so it's a lot of words. It's great. But if you study how much like RAM memory you need, it's like 14 terabytes of memory, not storage, but like memory, just pure RAM and memory. It's a huge amount. But with something like Swarmformer, you can reduce it down to like 256 gigabytes.
Wow.
So yeah, it's 64 times less, which is really great. It's really great. We're super impressed to get that done.
Is that something that yourself and the business are kind of you've created, or
Yes. So I've spent a lot of time over Christmas, funnily enough, writing all the math for it and everything, and I thought maybe it would work. It should have worked on paper, and then me and one of my researchers, Mikas, over in Ireland, we worked on it over maybe a 5-day period, and got it to a point where we could really validate the results and make sure that it actually worked. And now we're furthering this research into other areas to see how it can help, you know, in both large language models and even for stuff like, you know, text-to-speech models, image models, video models, anywhere where you need to process huge amounts of data and do it on less hardware, or again, do it on
There must be a huge market for that. Given what you said about the one biggest problem really not being the evolution itself, but being the hardware and the data volumes, being able to reduce that or use it more effectively or efficiently has got to be,
for sure,
it's a huge market.
It's a huge market because you can reduce the cost, and if you can reduce the cost, you can increase the amount of customers you can do, and ultimately, if you keep it the same, you can process more data. Like in hospitals, they quite often use AI to read MRI scans or cancer scans, right? But part of the model is you reduce it in size, the image, you compress it down, and you compress it down, so you have less data to work on. And that's because like you only have so much space in the GPU to fit the mathematical representation of that image. So if you can reduce the amount of memory usage and increase the size of that image that it's studying on, then you can do much better work. You can get much better scans. You can process, ideally, more scans than you could do before, which is great because I would love to be able to get a client working in the NHS where we can deploy Swarmformer and take a hospital that was doing like, I don't know, 10, 100 scans a week and go to 1,000 scans a week.
Well, it makes a huge impact.
Exactly,
and
man.
This is what you were saying about your tagline.
Transforming humanity. That's the way we want to do it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Good.
Yeah, so that's what's in the future for us. Again, working with just amazing clients and making super amazing experiences for them, which is what we do best. Again, doing it here in the UK, which is great.
Yeah.
Because I don't know anyone else that's trying. It's very difficult to run a business here in the UK, so it's good fun. It's good fun, yeah, so I'm really excited.
Good. Well, look, where can people find you, Jordan, in terms of social media? You know, if anyone's got any questions about your business.
Yeah, sure.
Questions about, you know, AI in general, and they want to sort of pick up with you individually, or have got, you know, a request for the business in terms of looking at bringing AI into their business, where can they find you guys?
Oh, very easily. Just either reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm Jordan Legg. You can search me up, or just hit me up via email. I'm just Jordan at Takara.ai. Very easy to remember. So yeah, anytime people can ask me whatever they like. Also, you can come to one of my talks. I'm always talking around the UK around various different avenues, workshops, topics, all sorts of stuff. Yeah, I'm always open to having a conversation if it involves AI, for sure.
Fantastic. And we'll make sure that we tag any of your sort of latest release work, any other interviews that you've done and stuff. We'll make sure we tag that when we send the podcast out.
I really appreciate it.
Brilliant. Thanks for coming on, Jordan. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Perfect. That's a wrap.
Great.
Lovely.
Thank you so much, man.
That was really interesting.